Welcome to the Richmond Film Network podcast, your all-access pass to the world of independent cinema. Each week, we go beyond the credits and sit down with the creatives who turn vision into reality. Tune in weekly to find out who's on the RFN pod.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Giles with the Richmond Film Network, and I'll be your host for today's podcast. With me today is Roman Willi. Welcome, Roman.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I've got to go over your bio to let everybody know what it is you do and a little bit about you. Roman Willi is an award-winning wildlife filmmaker and photographer from Lucerne, Switzerland. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Media Engineering, specializing in film and animation. Before becoming self-employed in 2022 and establishing Wild Reach Productions in early 2024, he spent several years as a shooting director, crafting commercials and corporate films. Today, he develops independent wildlife documentaries and photography projects while collaborating with NGOs and production companies worldwide. He also hosts exhibitions, delivers talks, and leads workshops, sharing his expertise and passion for conservation and natural history storytelling. His internationally recognized wildlife photography has earned multiple awards, including 2 highly commended honors at Wildlife Photographer of the Year. His debut documentary, Growing Up Wild, and Sandcastle, The Secret Life of Potter Wasps, have won awards at global film festivals. And most recently, he completed the short films Part of the Osa and The Leap Beneath, which is what he's here promoting today. The Leap Beneath will screen with us on Saturday, May 17th at 4:30 at the Park RVA. Roman, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. I think what you do is so wonderful. It's an honor to have you. What you do is meaningful. It's done so beautifully and in such an entertaining way. So thank you for being.
Thank you so much for the kind words.
How did you get here telling stories about wildlife?
I've always been passionate about nature. Like since I was a little kid growing up, I was always looking for insects and spiders, especially like the small and the overlooked creatures have always fascinated me very much. And then I was also always with my dad's camera, like taking pictures of animals, whatever I found. And then through my studies and like getting more professionally into camera work, I naturally started filming animals, and at that moment it like clicked in my head. I was like, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life, like filming wildlife and telling stories about nature and conservation.
And at what age was that when you knew?
When I started like professionally using a camera, that I was like, okay, that this is it, this is the way I want to go.
So what inspired you for this film to focus on the forest floor with a springtail as your protagonist? I've learned so much just watching your short film about this little springtail. So what's so special about that springtail?
Well, it actually started like the idea originated because it was a collaboration with Venus Laowa. They're like a manufacturing of macro lenses, and I work with their material for a while. And they approached me to do something for their new line of macro lenses. And because it was November in Switzerland, there's not much around, like there's not much insects. But I knew springtails, you can always find springtails even in winter. So I came up with the idea to do a little story about that small tiny world in the soil, because I know a lot of people don't know much about this world and like those really tiny animals. I wanted to do something funny and entertaining that can be watched by children, everybody.
So what are the challenges capturing such a hidden small world on camera?
Well, with springtails and like mites and like all those really tiny animals that are like only a few millimeters big, yeah, it's pretty challenging, which is why I decided to basically build a little studio environment and film it in studio.
Oh,
Because, yeah, because I wanted to be on eye level with a slider and everything, so I had to have it a bit above me. So I yeah, it would have been very, 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 very difficult to capture that in the wild. Yeah, so I decided to go that route. And you also need a lot of light, and because they're so small, yeah, there's a lot of challenges for sure.
Okay, that just changes everything about how I perceive the film now, now that I know that.
That was the first film I actually did fully in studio. All the rest of my films have been on location, but because it's such tiny animals, like it's almost impossible to do like that sort of storytelling I wanted to do in the wild. And also I didn't have like too much time to film this, so I wanted to be as efficient as possible as well.
Well, as I was watching, I was thinking, how in the world does he get this close on the springtail and then it plops up and lands somewhere else and then he picks up that can't be the same springtail. It has to be a different.
No, it probably was a different one. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So, how do you strike a balance between scientific accuracy and creative storytelling? Because you're definitely telling a fun story with the springtail on his quest.
Yeah, I think it depends like what kind of audience you want to reach, and
Mhm.
we with Wild Reach Productions we generally want to reach a broad audience from young people to older people, basically as many people as we can possibly reach. And that's also why we don't make our films too scientific, although I still want to include some facts, and that's why also in the film show different creatures and at least like mention what they're called, but I don't want to overload it with facts and focus more on the actual storytelling part, I think.
And the story is told with the narrator Coyote Peterson. So how did that collaboration happen?
A couple of years ago, I was in Costa Rica for a few months working with an NGO there. And actually, during that time, the Brave Wilderness team came down there to film with my friend who founded that NGO because he's also an entomologist. And so they did an episode about insects with him. And because I was also part of the shoot, but I met the whole team and spent a couple of days with them. And yeah, we became friends. We hit it off, and then stayed in contact. And when I made this film, I just thought of him because I met him at a wild screen festival in Bristol. I actually met him in person again. I just thought of Coyote and was like, oh, he's actually a perfect fit for this kind of film that I wanted to make with, yeah, kind of entertaining, and he really did a great job, I think.
There is a sense of narrative arc in the film, and they say that you discover your film three times. How much of that narrative arc was discovered in post versus planned in advance?
Right.
So did that
I
story
think
change along the way?
it definitely did change a bit because initially I actually planned, but that would have been so hard to film. The initial idea would have been that the springtail walks across a mushroom, and then a spore of the mushroom sticks to the springtail, and then in the end he like helps disperse this mushroom spore. But yeah, that would have been so hard to film, so I decided to go another route. That was something that changed. But yeah, also, I mean, I just picked up some leaf litter and saw what kind of creatures are there, and through that I also changed the narration, obviously, because I didn't know beforehand exactly what I would find. So yeah, but other than that, it pretty much stayed kind of the same, I would say.
So how long did it take to shoot the macro sequences?
I filmed for about a week, and then I had one day where I went into my local forest and did like all those establishing shots with a slider. I filmed it in studio with artificial light and with a slider set up so I could get really close. So, I mean, the important thing is that you're like kind of on eye level with the animal. That's why it's also like it was convenient to film it in studio, because otherwise it would have been hard to achieve that.
So as I was watching, I was thinking about Foley as well.
Right.
Please tell me if it doesn't expose too much of the secrets of filmmaking, if you're able to share that, how you got those sounds.
Right. I mean, normally with our other films, we work with a sound designer, which we worked on as well on this film. But because it was, yeah, it was a time sensitive thing. I did actually the most part of the sound design, and then Etienne, our sound designer, came in and added some extra bits and pieces and did the whole mix with Coyote and music and Foley. But yeah, I have a quite a big sound library now, because for my other film about potter wasps, I actually recorded a lot of Foley from there. So I was able to take some sounds from there, like some leaf rustling and stuff like that. And then some other sounds, random sounds sometimes, but then you take it into the program and pitch it down a bit, or make it slower, make it faster, and then yeah, you just kind of have to figure out what could enhance the story, what kind of sounds can enhance the story. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a real sound that would occur in nature. For example, there's one scene where the springtails is like kind of looking around and with his antennae going like that, and then Coyote says his antennae move around like radar dishes. So I added some kind of a sound like that that is completely not in nature, but it kind of, I wanted to also um, make it a bit funny, and so I kind of, in that part I added this random sound as well. So yeah, but mostly Foley, but also some sound effects from a library. Yeah, kind of a combination.
So when you're filming in nature, can you talk about ethical guidelines and how that impacts what you do?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. The welfare of the animal always is the top priority. For this film, I did it in studio, but I always made sure all my subjects were okay. And there were a lot of springtails I filmed with. It wasn't always the same one, so I filmed like maybe one scene with one and then set it free again, and then filmed the next one with another one. But yeah, it's the most important thing for sure. The welfare of the animal always comes first.
Even the teeny tiny small ones.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what animal, honestly. It doesn't matter.
So you've worked in commercial and corporate filmmaking before. How did that shape your visual style and your storytelling instincts in wildlife work?
That's a good question. Because it's completely different.
Hmm.
Um,
If at all.
I think maybe I some things I learned is like how audiences perceive the stuff you make. So we did a lot of different content for different audiences. So I think through that I learned a lot about understand your target audience. And also, I mean, I learned to be a generalist. I learned editing. I learned like the whole from pre-production to post-production, kind of. Yeah, I was kind of an all-rounder there, which helped a lot in my later career. um but honestly, like in terms of wildlife filmmaking, the best thing was just to go out and film stuff and make films and improve. Every film you learn a lot of new stuff which you can apply to the next one. And also obviously by watching other people's work, get inspired, and yeah.
What do you see as the role of short form wildlife films in today's digital attention economy? Can they compete with the longer traditional nature docs?
Yeah, that's I mean, we from Wild Reach Production, we've done 5 short films now. We just completed another one. Actually, I have to update my bio because that one isn't even in my bio. We made a recently completed one about the amphibian migration from the perspective of a toad. So that's also a pretty cool one, which I might submit next year. We'll see.
Nice.
But yeah, honestly, we are also trying to do longer stuff. We currently have one documentary in post production, which is going to be around 50 minutes. So we are also looking into that long form content and developing some series as well. But short form definitely has its place, especially for like we've done a lot of stuff with NGOs. I think for that it's really a good format to keep it like around 15 minutes max
Hmm.
for NGOs. So they can also use the video to approach funders and donors. So I think for that it's a pretty good format, and obviously for everything social media as well.
You've said that your goal is to raise awareness for conservation through overlooked stories. Have you seen tangible impact from your work?
I would say I would like to believe so, at least, yeah. We've especially I think one of the most impactful docs we've done so far has been our very first one about a spider monkey in Costa Rica, and that film is now actively being used in environmental education in Costa Rica for local people, as well as advocating just about the biodiversity there, which is so unique and really needs to be protected. So I think we definitely helped um, play a tiny part in, obviously, like the NGOs are the ones that are actually on the ground doing the really important work, but I would love to believe that our film helps them in their mission and plays a small role. And with films like Leap Beneath and Sandcastle, like those films focusing on overlooked creatures and maybe creatures that people um, initially don't like, and for the wrong reasons, in my opinion, at least. I think those help people perceive insects and spiders and animals like that in a new light. At least I hope so. And like I hope to share my passion and my fascination with people with films like that. And I think I've definitely changed at least the people in my circle that have seen the films. They've been like, oh wow, like I don't see them in the same light anymore after I've seen your film, which is always great to hear.
Do you see yourself as a conservationist first or a filmmaker first, or is that line blurred?
um, I I would say I'm more of a filmmaker for sure, but I yeah, conservation is really important to me, and I hope it's just my strength is I think is the filmmaking part and the photography part, but I always work with NGOs, and the goal is always with our films to do something for conservation, even if it's only raising awareness. But yeah, that is always the goal, to help wildlife and biodiversity by spreading awareness at least. But yeah, the real heroes are the conservationists on the ground for sure.
So, what role do festivals and exhibitions and public talks play in building community around your films?
Definitely a big one, because we we were very we started out basically 2 years ago, like properly with like forming a production company and stuff like that. And it was really important for us to submit our films to festivals to get recognized and like build an audience like worldwide. And our films have generally done really well at festivals, and I've been to a couple of screenings now. I'm going to another festival next month in Germany. So it's always I love being at festivals, and I think it's a really cool way to show, like it's the best way to showcase your work to a live audience. And also the networking part there, you connect with a lot of like-minded people as well. And for my talks as well, I think it's a really cool way to raise awareness for issues and highlight animals. And like every talk I have now, I show at least one of my films as well.
So your work has been featured in National Geographic. I was looking at your stories. I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before, and you had mentioned that was it frogs? Was it the frogs that are the most recent?
No, there's actually an image I took of a tick, like a
That's
tick
right.
full of blood,
That's
was
right.
featured on National Geographic. Yeah.
So that's a big deal. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, honestly. Yeah. I never imagined when I took that picture that it would end up on National Geographic, that's for sure.
So how does that happen? How did it get from you taking the photo to it being featured in National Geographic?
I mean, that one happened through an agency I'm working with, Nature Picture Library. So they actually licensed the picture through them. So credit to and shout out to Nature Picture Library.
So with the launch of Wild Reach Productions, how are you redefining what independent wildlife storytelling can look like?
Phew, good question. Um, I think we're just super passionate about this, and we wanted to make as many stories as possible and make as many films as possible, and like also like diversify. We're doing short films. We're now working on longer form content, and but at the same times we also want to still work with NGOs and support them in their cause by making films for them and with them.
So I'm scrolling through your Instagram right now, and the photography is so beautiful. This is how do you pronounce this? Ibex,
Ibex, yeah.
ibex. Yeah, the ibex, and that's there in Switzerland.
That's in my hometown in the mountains. Yeah. The ibex are probably the most iconic animals from Switzerland, I would say, because they're those mountain goats that live in the Alps, and the males have those big horns, and they're just beautiful. And the video you're talking about, I actually took those shots when I was camping with a friend. So we had set up our tent, and there were a couple of ibex around. And when the sun was really low, the light was just beautiful, and I was able to go quite close to them and get some amazing shots. So that was amazing.
So springtails are not the only thing that you shoot. The ibex, the spiders, the red foxes, the brown pelicans, the common frogs. So you do it all. What has been the most challenging to shoot, and what has been your favorite to shoot?
Um, I think one of my favorites has definitely been filming spider monkeys,
Mm.
because we just spent so many days with them, just observing them and seeing them do different things. It was just amazing, and you like kind of fall in love with them. So that was definitely one of the best filming experiences. um, One of the most challenging was when we tried to film a kingfisher hunting. We had all those shots we needed, but we still didn't have one of the kingfisher actually going down into the water and catching a fish and then coming up onto a branch and then eating that fish. We were trying for so long to get those shots. And then at like the last day we had initially planned to film this sequence, it finally happened. We were lining up the shots because you don't know where he's gonna land into the water, so you just have to like kind of guess where he's gonna go in. And then he went in perfectly where we had put our focus of the cameras, and then went up, ate his fish, and we got our shots. Yeah, that was challenging, but in the end, if you get the shots, you're super happy, and it was all worth it, all the effort.
Tell us about those guys on your wall behind you.
Oh yeah. Those are two images from a past exhibition. They're both taken in Costa Rica, actually. This is a longhorn beetle and this is a leaf beetle taking off. So yeah, just have them on my wall right now until I hopefully have the next exhibition where I can use them for that.
So where have your shoots taken you around the world, and what are you shooting there? You had mentioned Costa Rica before, and you were recently in Australia.
Yeah. Um, I mean, for Wild Reach production shoots, we've so far been in Costa Rica, Australia, and the UK, in the Shetland Islands, where we filmed our feature doc that I was talking about that is currently in post production. And we have one project coming up in Montenegro. And for next year, we're planning some other exciting stuff. But always filming in Switzerland as well. So I have a couple of projects here right now. I just recently filmed a commercial with Swiss Tourism, which is going to come out in 2 weeks, and filming for another documentary about Swiss wildlife as well. So yeah.
Well, Roman, we're sorry you can't be with us Saturday, but this has been the next best thing. I'm so thrilled to be showing The Leap Beneath with our audience. I think it's fun and it's at the top of the screening. So, nice way to break the audience in with something visually stunning and moving as well. Um, Tell viewers who are interested in learning more about you and your work, where can they find you?
RomanWilli.com or my Instagram, Roman Willi Photography, and then also check out wildreachproductions.com.
Roman,
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm obviously bummed I can't make it, but I wish you all the best for that screening, and I hope the audience will enjoy it.
thank you so much.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Richmond Film Network podcast. Thanks to our guest and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. Tune in next week to see who's on the RFN pod. Until then, keep the cameras rolling.